What if some of the greatest cities in human history didn't disappear, but were simply forgotten? Archaeologists keep uncovering places that were never supposed to be found again. Entire cities buried beneath centuries of sand. Giant stone monuments whose purpose remains unknown. Hidden temples carved into cliffs. And the strangest part, many of these places were once among the most important locations on Earth. Tonight, we're travelling across some of the world's most mysterious archaeological sites, from a circular fortress in the deserts of Uzbekistan that nobody can fully explain, to a lost city hidden in the mountains of Yemen, to a forgotten settlement that remained underwater for thousands of years before a drought suddenly revealed it again. These aren't legends, these are real places, real discoveries, and each one leaves archaeologists with more questions than answers. So before we begin, take a moment to subscribe. Someone says everyone who subscribes to this channel receives 7 years of good luck. Now dim the lights, get comfortable. The ancient city built in the middle of a lava field. On a windswept plateau near the border of Armenia and Turkey lie the ruins of a city that once rivaled the greatest capitals of the medieval world. A city filled with grand cathedrals, palaces, markets, and towering stone walls visible for miles across the landscape. At its peak, more than 100,000 people may have lived here. Merchants arrived from distant kingdoms, caravans crossed continents to reach its gates, and travellers called it the City of 1,001 Churches. Today, however, it stands abandoned, silent, broken, and surrounded by a landscape of volcanic rock and open grasslands. This remarkable place is known as Ani, and it remains one of the most haunting lost cities on Earth. The ruins sit on a high plateau carved by deep river gorges. The location was carefully chosen. Steep cliffs protected much of the city naturally, while massive defensive walls guarded the remaining approaches. Anyone arriving at Ani would have immediately understood its importance. This was not a village. It was a major capital, a centre of wealth, religion, and power. The city flourished during the medieval kingdom of Armenia. By the 10th and 11th centuries, Ani had become one of the most important cities in the region. Trade routes connected it to the Byzantine Empire, Persia, Central Asia, and the Arab world. Merchants carried silk, spices, metals, textiles, and countless other goods through its markets. The city grew rich. Its rulers used that wealth to build monumental architecture on an astonishing scale. Even today, the ruins remain impressive. The Cathedral of Ani still dominates the skyline. Its massive stone walls rise above the surrounding landscape despite centuries of damage. Nearby stand the remains of churches, chapels, towers, and public buildings scattered across the plateau. Each structure hints at a city that was once among the greatest urban centres of its age. One of the most fascinating aspects of Ani is its setting. The city sits within a region shaped by ancient volcanic activity. Dark volcanic stone was used throughout construction. Builders transformed local materials into elegant churches and defensive walls. The result was a city that seemed to emerge naturally from the landscape itself. Stone from the earth became stone architecture. The city and its surroundings became inseparable. Visitors often describe Ani as feeling strangely isolated. The vast open plains create a sense of emptiness. Wind moves through ruined doorways. Grass grows where crowded streets once stood. The silence can be overwhelming. Yet 1,000 years ago, this same place would have been filled with noise, markets bustling with activity, church bells ringing, travellers arriving from distant lands, life unfolding in every direction. One mystery that continues to intrigue historians is the exact size of Ani during its peak. Some medieval accounts describe an enormous population, others may have exaggerated. Archaeologists continue debating how many people truly lived within the walls. Regardless of the precise number, there is no doubt that Ani was one of the most significant cities in the medieval world. Its influence stretched far beyond Armenia. The city also witnessed dramatic political changes. Over the centuries, control passed between different empires and kingdoms. Armenians, Byzantines, Seljuks, Georgians, and others all left their mark. Each period added new layers to the city's history. Yet these changes also brought instability. Wars damaged parts of the city. Trade routes shifted. Political power moved elsewhere. Then nature delivered another blow. Powerful earthquakes struck the region. Buildings collapsed. Sections of the city were destroyed. The decline became increasingly difficult to reverse. Gradually people left, markets closed, churches emptied, the once great capital faded into silence. For centuries, Ani remained largely forgotten. Its monuments stood alone above the river gorge while empires rose and fell around them. Travellers occasionally described the ruins, but few understood the city's former importance. Only modern archaeology began revealing the true scale of what had been lost. Today, Ani is recognised as one of the most extraordinary archaeological sites in the world, not because of treasure, not because of conquest, but because it preserves the remains of an entire civilization's golden age. A city built from volcanic stone, a crossroads of cultures and trade, a forgotten capital abandoned to the wind, and one of the most breathtaking lost cities ever discovered. The strange circular city, built 4,000 years ago. In the vast grasslands of southern Russia lies the remains of a city so unusual that archaeologists initially struggled to believe what they were seeing. A perfectly planned settlement, built in the shape of a giant circle, protected by defensive walls, filled with carefully arranged houses, and constructed nearly 4,000 years ago. From the air, the ruins look almost modern, as though someone drew them using a compass before building an entire town around the design. Why would ancient people create such a place? Who lived here? And why was the city suddenly abandoned? This remarkable site is known as Archaeum, and it remains one of the most mysterious archaeological discoveries ever made on the Eurasian steppe. The story of Archaeum almost ended before it began. In the 1980s, the area was scheduled to be flooded as part of a reservoir project. Before construction could begin, archaeologists were sent to investigate the region. What they discovered changed everything. Beneath the soil lay the remains of a settlement unlike any previously found in the area. The site was so important that plans to flood the valley were eventually abandoned. Archaeum was saved, and its mysteries could finally be studied. Viewed from above, the city reveals its most remarkable feature. It is almost perfectly circular. 2 concentric defensive walls surround the settlement. Inside those walls stood dozens of houses arranged in an organised ring. Roads and passageways connected different sections of the city. Everything appears carefully planned. Nothing seems accidental. The level of organisation is extraordinary for a settlement dating to around 2000 BC. At a time when many communities were still relatively small, Archaeum displayed sophisticated urban planning. The builders clearly understood engineering, construction, and community design. One of the most fascinating aspects of the site is how advanced it appears. Archaeologists discovered evidence of drainage systems, furnaces, workshops, and metalworking activities. The inhabitants were skilled craftspeople. They produced bronze tools and weapons. They managed resources carefully, and they lived within a settlement designed for both practicality and defence. The city was not simply a collection of homes. It was a highly organised community. Researchers believe Archaeum belonged to the Sintashta culture, a Bronze Age society that occupied parts of the Eurasian steppe. These people may have played an important role in the development of chariot technology, one of the most significant military innovations of the ancient world. Evidence from nearby sites suggests that some of the earliest known chariots emerged in this region. If true, the people of Archaeum may have helped shape the future of warfare across vast areas of Eurasia. One mystery continues to puzzle archaeologists. Why was the city abandoned? Excavations revealed evidence that Archaeum was deliberately burned. Large sections of the settlement were destroyed by fire, but whether the fire resulted from an attack, an accident, or a planned abandonment remains uncertain. Some researchers believe the inhabitants intentionally burned parts of the city before leaving. If so, why? The answer remains unknown. Perhaps changing environmental conditions forced people to relocate. Perhaps social or political changes altered life on the steppe. Or perhaps the city fulfilled a purpose that ended unexpectedly. The evidence provides clues, but no final explanation. The circular design has also inspired endless debate. Was the layout purely defensive? Did it hold symbolic meaning? Was it connected to astronomy or religious beliefs? Various theories have been proposed over the years. Some are supported by evidence, others are highly speculative. The true reason behind the city's unusual shape remains one of Archaeum's greatest mysteries. For centuries, the ruins lay hidden beneath the grasslands. Empires rose and fell across Eurasia. Nomads crossed the steppe. Kingdoms appeared and vanished. yet the circular city remained buried and forgotten. Only modern archaeology brought it back into the light. Today, Archaeum is recognized as one of the most important Bronze Age sites in the world, not because of treasure, not because of famous rulers, but because it reveals a level of planning and sophistication few expected from such an ancient settlement. Hidden beneath the Russian steppe lay a strange circular city, a city built 4,000 years ago, a place of engineers, craftsmen, and unanswered questions, and one of the most fascinating mysteries of the Bronze Age world, the giant stone tombs scattered across a desert plateau. Rising from the edge of the Arabian desert are hundreds of mysterious stone tombs that have puzzled archaeologists for decades. They sit alone on rocky hillsides, scattered across barren slopes, silent beneath the desert sun, and from the air they appear like ancient markers left behind by a forgotten civilization. Who built them? Who was buried inside them? And why were so many constructed in one of the harshest landscapes in Arabia? These remarkable monuments are known as the Jebel Hafit tombs, and they represent some of the oldest stone structures ever discovered in the United Arab Emirates. The tombs are located around Jebel Hafit, a towering mountain that rises dramatically above the surrounding desert near the city of Al-Ain. The landscape feels ancient. Rocky ridges stretch toward the horizon, dry valleys cut through the terrain, and the mountain dominates everything around it. For thousands of years, travellers crossing the region would have seen Jebel Hafit from miles away. It served as a landmark in a vast and unforgiving environment. But hidden along its slopes lies something even more remarkable. Hundreds of small circular stone tombs. At first glance, the tombs appear simple. Most are built from carefully stacked stones, arranged into low, circular structures. Many have partially collapsed over time. Others remain surprisingly intact despite their age. Yet together they form one of the largest prehistoric burial landscapes in Arabia. Researchers believe the tombs were constructed more than 5,000 years ago during the early Bronze Age. That makes them older than many famous monuments elsewhere in the world. The people who built them lived at a time when communities across Arabia were beginning to establish trade networks and permanent settlements. Yet surprisingly little is known about them. They left no written records, no historical accounts, only the tombs themselves. One of the most fascinating discoveries came when archaeologists excavated several of the structures. Inside, they found human remains along with pottery and other artifacts. Some objects originated far from the region. Evidence suggested that even 5,000 years ago, people living near Jebel Hafit were connected to trade routes stretching across the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. The desert was not isolated. It was part of a larger world. The tombs also reveal something about how these ancient communities viewed death. Building hundreds of stone monuments required effort, planning, and cooperation. The dead were clearly important. Families invested time and resources creating burial places designed to endure long after life ended. The structures may have served as lasting reminders of ancestors whose memory remained central to the community. One mystery continues to intrigue researchers. Why were the tombs concentrated around Jebel Hafit? The mountain itself may have held special significance. Its towering presence dominates the landscape. Perhaps it was considered sacred. Perhaps it marked an important territory. Or perhaps generations simply chose to bury their dead beneath a landmark that could be seen from great distances. The true answer has been lost to time. Another fascinating aspect is how the tombs blend into the landscape. From a distance, many are difficult to notice. The stones match the surrounding terrain so closely that the structures almost disappear into the desert. Only when viewed from above does the full scale of the cemetery become apparent. Hundreds of tombs spread across the mountain slopes like pieces of a giant prehistoric puzzle. For thousands of years, these monuments remained exposed to wind, heat, and sandstorms. Empires rose and fell nearby. Trade routes changed. Civilizations appeared and vanished. Yet the tombs endured, quietly watching over the desert plateau, preserving the memory of people whose names have long been forgotten. Today, the Jebel Hafit tombs are considered one of the most important archaeological discoveries in the Arabian Peninsula. Not because of treasure, not because of kings, but because they offer a rare glimpse into the lives of some of the region's earliest communities. Scattered across a desert mountain are hundreds of ancient stone tombs, silent monuments built 5,000 years ago, a forgotten cemetery beneath the Arabian sky, and one of the oldest, mysteries in the deserts of the Middle East. The ancient site filled with hundreds of stone pillars. In the highlands of northern Ethiopia stands an ancient site unlike any other on Earth, a landscape filled with towering stone pillars, some reaching the height of modern buildings, others weighing hundreds of tons, all carved from single pieces of stone and raised by a civilization that flourished nearly 2,000 years ago. For centuries, travellers who encountered these monuments struggled to understand them. Why were they built? How were they raised? And what kind of society possessed the knowledge and resources to create structures on such an enormous scale? Today, these mysterious monuments are known as the Stelae of Aksum, and they remain among the most extraordinary achievements of the ancient world. The story begins in the ancient city of Aksum, once the capital of the kingdom of Aksum. At its peak, Aksum was one of the most powerful states in Africa. Its influence stretched across parts of modern Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, and beyond. Trade routes connected the kingdom to Egypt, Arabia, India, and even the Roman world. Merchants carried ivory, gold, spices, textiles, and countless other goods through its markets. The city became wealthy, and that wealth helped create one of history's most remarkable monumental landscapes. Today, the first thing visitors notice is the forest of stone pillars rising from the earth. Some stand upright, others lie broken where they fell centuries ago. Yet even collapsed, their scale is astonishing. The tallest surviving examples reach more than 20 meters into the sky. The largest unfinished stela would have stood over 30 meters tall if completed. It remains one of the largest single blocks of stone ever attempted in the ancient world. What makes these monuments even more remarkable is their design. Many are carefully carved to resemble multi-story buildings. False doors appear near the base. Rows of carved windows cover the surface. Architectural details create the illusion that the stone pillars are giant towers frozen in time. The craftsmanship required to achieve such precision was extraordinary. Every feature had to be carved directly into solid granite. One of the greatest mysteries involves construction. How did ancient builders transport and raise monuments weighing hundreds of tons? The technology available at the time was limited, yet somehow workers quarried massive stones, moved them across the landscape and erected them upright. Researchers believe large labour forces, wooden rollers, ropes and carefully engineered ramps may have been involved. Even so, the achievement remains astonishing. The stelae were closely connected to burial traditions. Archaeologists discovered elaborate tombs beneath and around many of the monuments. These underground chambers likely belonged to powerful rulers and elite members of society. The towering pillars above served as markers visible across the landscape, symbols of status, memory, and royal authority. The larger the monument, the greater the prestige. At least that appears to have been the intention. One of the most fascinating aspects of Aksum is how little known it remains compared to other ancient civilizations. Many people recognize Egypt, Rome, or Greece. Far fewer know that Aksum was once considered one of the great powers of its age. Ancient writers described its wealth and influence. Its kings minted their own coins, its merchants traded across continents, and its rulers built monuments rivaling some of the most famous structures in the world. The site also preserves evidence of dramatic change. During the 4th century, Aksum became one of the earliest kingdoms to adopt Christianity. New religious traditions transformed the city. Churches appeared, older customs evolved. Yet the giant stelae remained part of the landscape, silent reminders of earlier generations. One monument in particular has become famous. Known as the Great Stela, it collapsed in antiquity and now lies broken into massive sections. Had it remained standing, it would have been one of the tallest monolithic structures ever erected anywhere on Earth. Its fall remains a mystery. Perhaps it collapsed during construction. Perhaps an earthquake brought it down. The exact cause remains uncertain. For centuries, the stelae stood exposed to weather, conflict and time. Empires rose and fell around them. Trade routes shifted. The ancient kingdom declined. Yet the monuments endured, guarding the memory of a civilization that once connected Africa to the wider world. Today, the stelae field of Aksum stands as one of the most important archaeological sites in Africa, not because of treasure, not because of conquest, but because it reveals the achievements of a civilization whose influence stretched across continents. A site filled with hundreds of towering stone pillars, a monument to forgotten kings, a masterpiece of ancient engineering, and one of the most extraordinary mysteries of the ancient world. The lost royal city found deep in the Sudanese desert. Rising above the deserts of northern Sudan is a mountain that has shaped the history of kingdoms, pharaohs, and empires for nearly 3,000 years. At first glance, it doesn't seem especially remarkable, a solitary sandstone peak rising from an otherwise flat landscape. But for ancient rulers, this mountain was one of the most sacred places on earth. Kings travelled here to claim their right to rule. Temples were built at its base, armies marched beneath its shadow, and entire dynasties believed their power came directly from the gods who lived here. This remarkable place is known as Gebel Barkal, and hidden around it are the remains of one of Africa's greatest lost royal cities. The mountain stands beside the Nile River in northern Sudan. Although only about 100 metres high, its appearance is striking. A dramatic sandstone pinnacle rises from one side of the formation, creating a shape that ancient people considered deeply symbolic. To them, this was not simply a mountain. It was a sacred landmark connected to divine power. For centuries, rulers believed the gods themselves resided here. The story of Gebel Barkal begins thousands of years ago, when the region became an important centre of the kingdom of Kush. This powerful African civilization controlled vast territories along the Nile and eventually became one of the greatest kingdoms in the ancient world. Its rulers built cities, temples, pyramids, and monuments that rivaled those of Egypt. Yet despite its importance, much of Kush remains unfamiliar to many people today. Gebel Barkal stood at the heart of that kingdom. At the base of the mountain, archaeologists uncovered the remains of temples, palaces, ceremonial buildings, and royal structures. The most important was a massive temple dedicated to Amun, one of the most powerful gods of the ancient Nile world. Pilgrims travelled here, priests performed sacred rituals here, and kings came seeking divine approval before taking the throne. The city surrounding the temple became one of the most important religious centres in Africa. One of the most fascinating aspects of Gebel Barkal is its connection to Egypt. For centuries, Egyptian pharaohs controlled parts of Nubia and considered the mountain sacred. Later, the rulers of Kush adopted many Egyptian traditions while maintaining their own identity. Eventually, Kushite kings grew so powerful that they conquered Egypt itself. For a time, the pharaohs ruling Egypt came from Sudan. Their connection to Gebel Barkal remained central to their authority. The mountain became a symbol of legitimacy for rulers across the Nile Valley. Archaeologists have uncovered remarkable evidence of this royal past. Temples filled with carvings, statues of kings, inscriptions describing ceremonies and victories. Every discovery reveals a civilization that was wealthy, sophisticated, and deeply connected to the wider ancient world. Yet many mysteries remain. One mystery involves the mountain itself. Why did ancient people consider this particular place sacred? Some researchers believe the unique shape of the sandstone pinnacle resembled a royal crown or a sacred symbol associated with Amun. Others suggest the mountain's dramatic appearance simply inspired awe. Whatever the reason, its importance endured for centuries. The landscape around Gebel Barkal also contains pyramids. Not one or two, but entire groups of royal pyramids built for Kushite kings and queens. Although smaller than Egypt's most famous pyramids, they are equally fascinating. Together they create one of the most remarkable archaeological regions in Africa. The area served as a centre of religion, government, and royal power for generations. Eventually, however, the fortunes of Kush began to change. Trade routes shifted, political rivals emerged, new powers rose across the region. Gradually, the great royal city declined. Its temples fell silent, its palaces crumbled. The desert slowly reclaimed what people had built. For centuries, the ruins remained hidden beneath sand and time. Yet the sacred mountain endured, watching over the landscape just as it had for thousands of years. Today, Gebel Barkal stands as one of the most important archaeological sites in Africa. Not because of treasure, not because of conquest, but because it preserves the story of a civilization powerful enough to rule an empire and challenge the greatest kingdoms of the ancient world. Deep in the Sudanese desert stands a sacred mountain. Beneath its shadow lies a lost royal city, a centre of kings, temples, and forgotten power, and one of the most extraordinary hidden worlds of the ancient Nile, the Forgotten Temple, hidden in a forest of limestone peaks. Deep within the jungles of central Vietnam lies a forgotten sanctuary surrounded by towering limestone mountains and dense tropical forests. For centuries, nature concealed its temples beneath thick vegetation. Trees grew through ancient walls, roots wrapped around stone carvings, and the jungle slowly reclaimed what an entire civilization had once considered sacred. Yet hidden among these forest-covered ruins are the remains of one of Southeast Asia's most important religious centres, a place where kings prayed, priests performed ceremonies, and generations of rulers sought the blessing of the gods. This remarkable site is known as My Son, and it remains one of the most fascinating lost temple complexes in Asia. The sanctuary sits within a secluded valley surrounded by dramatic limestone peaks. The location feels almost hidden from the outside world. Mountains rise on every side, dense vegetation blankets the landscape. Even today, visitors often feel as though they have stepped into another age. It is easy to understand why ancient rulers considered this place special. The valley possesses a natural sense of isolation and mystery. Thousands of years ago, this was the spiritual heart of the Champa kingdom. The Cham people controlled large sections of what is now central and southern Vietnam for centuries. They built prosperous cities, developed extensive trade networks, and created a sophisticated culture influenced by India and the wider maritime world. At the centre of their religious life stood My Son. Construction began more than 1,500 years ago. Over the centuries, kings continued adding temples, shrines, and ceremonial structures to the sanctuary. Each ruler sought to honour the gods while also demonstrating power and legitimacy. The result was an extraordinary complex of brick temples spread throughout the valley. One of the most fascinating aspects of My Son is its architecture. Many structures were built almost entirely from brick, yet even today, archaeologists continue debating how the builders joined the bricks together so precisely. The seams between many bricks are remarkably thin. In some areas, the structures appear almost seamless. Various theories have been proposed: special mortars, unique construction techniques, heat treatments, but the full method remains uncertain. The builders left behind monuments, not instructions. The sanctuary was dedicated primarily to Hindu deities, especially Shiva. Towering temple structures once housed sacred objects and religious symbols. Priests performed rituals here for generations. Smoke from incense drifted through the valley. Ceremonies echoed between the surrounding mountains. For centuries, My Son served as one of the most important sacred places in Southeast Asia. The site also reveals how connected the ancient world truly was. Religious ideas from India travelled across the sea. Local traditions blended with foreign influences. Artistic styles evolved into something uniquely Cham. The sanctuary became a meeting point of cultures, beliefs, and traditions. One mystery continues to fascinate researchers. How large was the original complex? Many structures have disappeared. Others remain buried beneath the forest floor. Archaeologists continue discovering new details about the sanctuary and the civilization that created it. The jungle still guards many secrets. Over time, wars, invasions, and natural disasters damaged the temples. Some structures collapsed. Others suffered severe destruction. The once great sanctuary gradually declined. As the Champa kingdom weakened, the religious importance of My Son faded. Eventually, the valley fell silent. The priests disappeared, the ceremonies ended, and the forest slowly reclaimed the sacred landscape. For centuries, the temples remained hidden beneath vegetation. Travellers occasionally encountered ruins, but much of the sanctuary was forgotten. Only modern archaeology began revealing the true scale of what once existed here. Today, My Son is recognised as one of the most important archaeological sites in Southeast Asia. Not because of treasure, not because of famous battles, but because it preserves the spiritual heart of a civilization that flourished for more than 1,000 years. Hidden among limestone peaks and tropical forests lies a forgotten temple city, a sanctuary of kings and gods, a lost world reclaimed by the jungle, and one of the most remarkable archaeological treasures in Asia. The ancient fortress carved into a desert cliff. Hidden among the rose-coloured mountains of southern Jordan stands a monument surrounded by mystery. Carved directly into towering cliffs, protected by deep canyons, and hidden within one of the most remarkable archaeological landscapes on Earth. For centuries, travellers crossing the desert spoke of a lost city concealed among the rocks, a place of temples, tombs, and monumental architecture unlike anything else in the ancient world. Yet beyond the famous facades of Petra lies another story, a story of sacred buildings, hidden strongholds, and a civilization that transformed an entire desert landscape into stone. At the heart of that story stands Qasr al-Bint, one of the most important and mysterious structures in the Petra region. The monument sits within the ancient city of Petra, the legendary capital of the Nabatean kingdom. Unlike many of Petra's famous buildings, which were carved directly into cliffs, Qasr al-Bint was constructed from massive stone blocks. Its towering walls once dominated the city. Even today, the ruins rise above the surrounding valley, hinting at the importance the structure once held. The location itself feels extraordinary. Towering sandstone cliffs surround the area on every side. Narrow canyons twist through the mountains. Ancient pathways wind across the landscape. Anyone approaching Petra had to pass through natural defences created by the desert itself. The city was protected not only by walls and soldiers, but by the geography of the region. It was a fortress hidden among the rocks. The Nabateans, who built Petra, were masters of desert survival. They controlled important trade routes connecting Arabia, Egypt, Syria, and the Mediterranean world. Caravans carrying incense, spices, silk, and precious goods passed through their territory. The wealth generated by this trade transformed Petra into one of the richest cities of the ancient world. Qasr al-Bint became one of its most important buildings. Most archaeologists believe the structure functioned as a major temple. Religious ceremonies likely took place here for centuries. Priests gathered within its walls, offerings were presented, and rulers may have participated in rituals connected to the gods worshipped by the Nabateans. Yet despite decades of study, many details remain uncertain. The exact religious practices carried out here are still debated. The builders left behind magnificent architecture, but very few explanations. One of the most fascinating aspects of Qasr al-Bint is its survival. Earthquakes damaged much of Petra over the centuries. Many structures collapsed, others disappeared entirely, yet large portions of this temple remained standing. Its builders clearly understood construction techniques capable of surviving in a difficult environment. The engineering was remarkable. The mystery deepens when considering the wider landscape around it. Petra contains hundreds of tombs, shrines, monuments, and carved facades scattered throughout the mountains. Many remain only partially explored. Others continue revealing new discoveries. The entire region feels like a giant archaeological puzzle. Every canyon seems to hide another secret. Every cliff contains traces of forgotten history. Some researchers believe Qasr al-Bint may have played a central role in the religious life of the city. Its position, size, and design suggest tremendous importance, yet surprisingly little is known about the ceremonies performed there. What prayers were spoken? What rituals took place inside? What did ordinary people experience when they visited the sanctuary? The answers disappeared nearly 2,000 years ago. Eventually, Petra's fortunes changed. Trade routes shifted. The Roman Empire altered regional commerce. Earthquakes damaged key structures. Gradually, the once thriving city declined. The temples fell silent. The markets emptied. The desert began reclaiming the landscape. For centuries, Petra remained largely forgotten by the outside world, hidden among the mountains, protected by the same cliffs that once made it powerful. Then explorers and archaeologists rediscovered the lost city. What they found astonished the world. Today, the Petra region remains one of the most extraordinary archaeological landscapes ever discovered, not because of treasure, not because of conquest, but because it reveals how an ancient civilization transformed an unforgiving desert into a thriving centre of religion, trade, and culture. Hidden within a fortress of sandstone cliffs stands an ancient sanctuary, a monument carved into the heart of the desert, a relic of a forgotten kingdom. And one of the most fascinating mysteries of the ancient world, the lost temple found beneath an ancient capital. Beneath the ruins of one of Egypt's greatest ancient capitals lies a temple that spent centuries hidden beneath layers of sand, debris, and forgotten history. A temple dedicated to a powerful goddess, a sanctuary once visited by priests, queens, and rulers, and a monument that remained buried while entire empires rose and fell above it. For generations, people walked across the site without realizing what lay beneath their feet. Then archaeologists began uncovering walls, statues, inscriptions, and sacred chambers that had not seen sunlight for thousands of years. What emerged was one of the most important religious sites in ancient Egypt, a place known as the Temple of Mut, and its story reveals a forgotten chapter of one of history's greatest civilizations. The temple stands within the vast religious complex of Karnak in southern Egypt. Today, Karnak is famous for its gigantic columns, towering gateways, and monumental temples. Millions of visitors come to see its ruins. Yet hidden within this enormous sacred landscape was a sanctuary that remained overlooked for centuries. Dedicated to the goddess Mut, the temple once formed an essential part of Egypt's religious world. Mut was one of the most important goddesses in ancient Egyptian belief. She was associated with motherhood, protection, kingship, and divine power. Together with the god Amun and their son Khonsu, she formed part of the sacred triad worshipped in the city of Thebes. For generations, priests carried out ceremonies in her honour. Offerings were made, festivals were celebrated, and rulers sought divine favour within the sanctuary's walls. One of the most fascinating aspects of the site is how much remained hidden. Over centuries, changing landscapes, floods, collapsed structures, and drifting sand gradually buried large sections of the temple complex. Buildings disappeared from view, walls vanished beneath the earth. The sanctuary slowly faded from memory. Only modern excavation revealed the true scale of what once stood here. As archaeologists cleared the site, remarkable discoveries emerged. Stone statues, ancient inscriptions, temple walls covered with carvings, and evidence of repeated rebuilding by generations of pharaohs. Each ruler left traces behind. The temple became a record of centuries of Egyptian history carved into stone. One discovery attracted particular attention. Hundreds of statues associated with the goddess Sekhmet were found within the complex. These imposing figures represented a powerful lion-headed deity, connected to protection and warfare. Why so many statues were gathered here remains a subject of study. Some researchers believe they played important roles in religious ceremonies designed to maintain cosmic balance and divine order. The architecture itself reveals the immense importance of the sanctuary. Large courtyards once welcomed worshippers. Sacred lakes reflected temple walls. Processions moved through ceremonial pathways during major festivals. The complex was not simply a place of worship, it was the centre of a living religious community, a place where politics, religion, and daily life became deeply connected. Yet despite centuries of research, mysteries remain. How much of the original complex is still buried? How many structures have yet to be discovered? And what ceremonies took place behind walls that ordinary people were never allowed to enter? The temple continues to reveal new clues, but many answers remain hidden beneath the earth. The city surrounding the sanctuary eventually changed. Dynasties rose and fell. Foreign powers arrived. Religious traditions evolved. The importance of the temple gradually declined. Its priests disappeared, its ceremonies ended, and the desert slowly reclaimed what people had built. For centuries, silence settled over the sanctuary. Then archaeology brought it back into the light. Today, the Temple of Mut stands as one of the most important archaeological sites within the ancient city of Thebes. Not because of treasure, not because of conquest, but because it preserves the memory of a sacred world that once shaped the lives of countless people along the Nile. Hidden beneath an ancient capital lay a forgotten temple, a sanctuary dedicated to powerful gods and goddesses, a monument buried by time, and one of the most fascinating rediscoveries in Egyptian archaeology, the giant burial field larger than anyone expected. Across the deserts of Bahrain lies one of the most extraordinary archaeological landscapes on Earth, a landscape covered not by cities, not by temples, but by tombs, thousands upon thousands of tombs, stretching across the horizon in every direction. From ground level they appear as small hills rising from the desert floor, easy to miss, easy to mistake for natural formations. But from above, the true scale becomes impossible to ignore. The desert is covered with burial mounds, so many that early archaeologists could hardly believe what they were seeing. Who built them? Why were there so many? And what kind of civilization needed a cemetery larger than entire ancient cities? The answer leads to one of the greatest mysteries of the Bronze Age world, a civilization known as Dilmun. The burial mounds are scattered across Bahrain, a small island nation in the Persian Gulf. Today, modern roads and cities cross parts of the landscape. But thousands of years ago, this island occupied one of the most important locations in the ancient world. Ships travelling between Mesopotamia, Arabia, and the Indus Valley passed through these waters. Merchants stopped here, goods changed hands here, wealth flowed through the island, and as the civilization prospered, something unusual began to happen. The dead were buried beneath stone and earth mounds across the countryside. At first, archaeologists believed the tombs were relatively limited in number. Then surveys expanded, more mounds appeared, then more and more. Eventually, researchers realized they were looking at one of the largest ancient cemeteries ever discovered. Experts estimate that more than 100,000 burial mounds once existed across Bahrain. The number is staggering. Few places anywhere in the world possess a burial landscape of comparable size. The mounds vary considerably. Some are simple and modest. Others are much larger and more elaborate. Many contain stone burial chambers hidden beneath layers of earth and rock. Inside, archaeologists discovered pottery, jewellery, tools, and human remains. These objects offer rare glimpses into the lives of people who lived nearly 4,000 years ago. The civilization responsible for the cemetery is known as Dilmun. Ancient Mesopotamian texts describe Dilmun as a wealthy and important trading centre, a place connected to distant lands through maritime commerce. For centuries, historians debated where Dilmun was located. Today, Bahrain is widely recognised as the heart of that ancient civilization. The burial mounds became one of the strongest pieces of evidence. One of the most fascinating aspects of the site is its consistency. Across vast areas of the island, people followed similar burial traditions. The tombs share common designs, common construction methods, and similar ideas about honouring the dead. This suggests a society with strong cultural traditions and shared beliefs. Yet despite extensive excavation, many mysteries remain. No written records explain why the burial fields became so enormous. Why dedicate so much land to the dead? Why continue the tradition for centuries? Researchers continue searching for answers. Some of the most impressive structures are known as the royal mounds. These giant tombs tower above surrounding burials. Their size immediately suggests importance. The individuals buried within them likely belong to powerful families or ruling elites. Constructing such monuments required significant resources and organisation. The royal mounds reveal that Dilmun was not a simple trading outpost. It was a sophisticated society capable of major engineering projects. The cemetery also raises another intriguing question. How large was the population that created it? Building more than 100,000 burial mounds would have required generations of people. Some scholars believe Bahrain supported a much larger population than previously imagined. Others think the island may have served as a regional burial centre, attracting communities from surrounding areas. The debate remains unresolved. The answers are still buried beneath the desert. For thousands of years, the mounds stood quietly beneath the Gulf sun. Empires rose and fell around them. Trade routes shifted. Civilizations disappeared. Yet the burial landscape endured, waiting for archaeologists to uncover its story. Today, the Dilmun burial mounds remain one of the greatest archaeological wonders of the ancient world. Not because of treasure, not because of conquest, but because they preserve the memory of an entire civilization on a scale almost impossible to comprehend. Across the deserts of Bahrain lies a giant burial field larger than anyone expected, a landscape of forgotten tombs, a monument to generations long gone, and one of the most remarkable mysteries of the Bronze Age world, the lost port city that once connected 3 continents. On Egypt's remote Red Sea coast lie the ruins of a city that once connected some of the most powerful civilizations on Earth, a city where ships arrived from India, where merchants traded goods from Arabia, and where products from Africa, Asia, and the Mediterranean passed through a single bustling harbour. For centuries, this port served as one of the ancient world's greatest gateways. Then it vanished. The harbour disappeared beneath drifting sand, its buildings collapsed, its streets fell silent. And eventually, history almost forgot it existed. This remarkable place is known as Berenike, and its rediscovery has transformed what archaeologists know about the ancient global economy. The ruins sit along Egypt's southeastern coast beside the Red Sea. Today the region feels isolated. Harsh desert stretches in every direction. Rocky mountains rise beyond the horizon. Temperatures can be extreme. Water is scarce. At first glance, it seems like an unlikely location for a major city. Yet more than 2,000 years ago, this remote coastline became one of the most important trade centres in the ancient world. Berenike was founded during the Ptolemaic period, after the conquests of Alexander the Great reshaped the eastern Mediterranean. Its location was carefully chosen. Ships sailing across the Red Sea could reach Arabia, East Africa and India far more efficiently than overland caravans crossing vast deserts. The city became a crucial link in an international network stretching across 3 continents. Merchants arrived carrying extraordinary cargo: spices from India, ivory from Africa, textiles from distant kingdoms, precious stones, exotic animals, incense, perfumes, and luxury goods destined for wealthy markets throughout the Roman world. The port transformed into a place where cultures, languages, and ideas met. One of the most fascinating discoveries at Berenike involved black pepper. Archaeologists uncovered ancient peppercorns imported from India nearly 2,000 years ago. The find may seem small, but it revealed something remarkable. Goods were travelling thousands of kilometres across oceans long before the modern era. The ancient world was far more connected than many people once imagined. The city also produced evidence of people arriving from distant regions. Artefacts from India have been found alongside Egyptian, Roman, and Arabian objects. Inscriptions appear in multiple languages. Religious traditions from different cultures existed side by side. Berenike was not simply an Egyptian city, it was an international city, a meeting point of continents. The harbour itself played a central role. Ships arrived after long voyages across dangerous waters. Sailors depended upon seasonal winds to navigate the Red Sea and Indian Ocean. The success of the city relied upon knowledge of weather, navigation, and maritime trade. Every arriving vessel carried new opportunities, and every departing ship carried wealth to distant lands. One mystery that continues to intrigue archaeologists is just how extensive these trade networks became. Excavations continue uncovering evidence of connections stretching farther than researchers once believed. Each discovery expands our understanding of ancient globalization. The city reveals a world linked together by commerce centuries before modern transportation existed. The harsh environment also helped preserve parts of the site. Dry desert conditions protected artifacts that would have disappeared elsewhere. Food remains, textiles, wooden objects, even everyday items survived. Together they provide a rare glimpse into life at one of the busiest ports of the ancient world. Yet despite its importance, Berenike eventually declined. Political changes altered trade patterns, economic priorities shifted, new routes emerged. The city gradually lost its significance, its population decreased, its harbour quieted, and over time, the desert began reclaiming what people had built. For centuries, the ruins remained hidden beneath sand and stone. Travellers passed nearby without realising that one of antiquity's greatest ports lay buried beneath the landscape. Then archaeology brought the city back into the light. Today, Berenike stands as one of the most important archaeological sites in Egypt, not because of pyramids, not because of pharaohs, but because it reveals how deeply connected the ancient world truly was. A lost port city on the edge of the Red Sea, a gateway linking Africa, Asia and Europe, a crossroads of merchants, sailors and travellers, and one of the most remarkable forgotten cities ever rediscovered, the ancient city that vanished from historical records. Hidden among the deserts of the United Arab Emirates lies the remains of a city that seemed to disappear from history. No famous kings remembered it. No surviving chronicles described its final days, and for centuries, the desert slowly erased nearly every trace that it had ever existed. Then archaeologists began uncovering tombs, houses, coins, temples, and artifacts buried beneath the sands. What emerged was the story of a thriving ancient city that once stood at the crossroads of international trade, a city connected to distant kingdoms, a city filled with merchants and travellers, and a city that somehow vanished from historical records. This remarkable place is known as Mleha, and it remains one of Arabia's most fascinating archaeological mysteries. Located in the Emirate of Sharjah, Mleha sits between rugged mountains and vast desert plains. Today, the landscape feels quiet and remote, but thousands of years ago this region occupied an important position along trade routes connecting Arabia with the wider ancient world. Caravans crossed the desert carrying valuable goods, merchants travelled between kingdoms, and communities flourished where trade and opportunity met. Malaya became one of those places. The first clues to its importance appeared through archaeological excavations. Researchers uncovered extensive settlement remains spread across the landscape. Stone structures, public buildings, burial complexes, and evidence of long-term occupation. The discoveries revealed that Malaya was far more significant than anyone had imagined. It was not simply a desert village, it was a thriving urban centre. One of the most fascinating discoveries involved coins. Archaeologists found currency originating from distant regions, including influences linked to the Greek world that followed the campaigns of Alexander the Great. These finds demonstrated how connected Malaya had become to international trade networks. Goods moved through Arabia from many directions, and Malaya stood directly in their path. The city became a meeting point of cultures. Traders from different backgrounds likely passed through its markets. Different languages may have been spoken in its streets. Ideas travelled alongside merchandise. The settlement prospered because it connected worlds. One remarkable discovery was the evidence of monumental tombs and elaborate burials surrounding the city. Some graves contained weapons, jewellery, and valuable goods. Others included the remains of camels and horses buried alongside humans. These burials reveal a society with complex traditions and clear social distinctions. The dead were honoured with care, and some individuals appear to have held significant status within the community. Archaeologists also uncovered evidence of religious activity. Temples and ceremonial structures suggest that spiritual life played an important role within the city, yet surprisingly little is known about the beliefs of the people who lived here. They left monuments, they left artifacts, but they left very few written explanations. Much of their world remains hidden behind silence. One mystery continues to intrigue researchers. Why does such an important city appear so rarely in historical records? Given its strategic location and apparent wealth, historians would expect far more references to survive, yet written sources remain limited. The city seems to emerge primarily through archaeology, rather than literature. It is as though history forgot a place that once mattered greatly. The surrounding environment may help explain both its success and its disappearance. Trade routes are fragile things. A shift in politics, a change in commerce, the rise of a competing centre. Any of these could alter the flow of wealth across a region. What once brought prosperity can suddenly bypass an entire city. Some researchers believe that changing trade patterns contributed to Malaya's decline. Over time, activity decreased, the population shrank, buildings were abandoned, the desert began reclaiming the landscape, sand covered walls, structures collapsed, and the city slowly disappeared from view. For centuries its story remained hidden beneath the ground. Travellers crossed the region unaware that a major settlement rested beneath their feet. Then archaeology brought Malaya back into the light. Every excavation revealed new pieces of a forgotten past. Every discovery expanded our understanding of ancient Arabia. Today, Malaya stands as one of the most important archaeological sites in the United Arab Emirates, not because of massive pyramids, not because of famous emperors, but because it reveals a thriving city that history almost erased completely. Hidden beneath the desert was an ancient urban centre, a crossroads of trade and culture, a city that vanished from historical records, and one of the most remarkable forgotten places in Arabia. The forgotten stone towers built on a windswept island. On a remote island off the northern coast of Scotland stands a stone tower, unlike almost anything else in the ancient world. A massive circular structure built from carefully stacked stone. Its walls are astonishingly thick. Its interior is filled with hidden chambers and passages. And despite centuries of study, archaeologists still debate exactly why it was built. Who constructed it? What purpose did it serve? And why do similar towers appear across the windswept islands of northern Scotland? These remarkable structures are known as brochs, and one of the finest examples ever discovered stands at a place called the Broch of Gurness. The site lies on the Orkney Islands, a landscape shaped by powerful winds, crashing seas, and thousands of years of human history. Today, the area feels peaceful. Green fields stretch toward the coastline. Waves roll across the surrounding waters. Seabirds circle overhead. Yet more than 2,000 years ago, this was the centre of a thriving community. At the heart of that community stood an enormous stone tower dominating the landscape. The Broch of Gurness was built during the Iron Age roughly 2,000 years ago. At a time when much of Europe was undergoing dramatic social and political change, the people of Orkney created something extraordinary. The tower rises from the centre of a carefully planned settlement surrounded by defensive walls and smaller buildings. Even in ruins, the structure remains impressive. Its walls originally stood several stories high. The builders achieved this entirely with stone, no mortar, no cement, just skill, planning and remarkable engineering. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Broch is its design. Inside the thick walls are hidden stairways, chambers and passageways. Some sections contain small rooms built directly into the structure itself. Others lead upward through the tower. The architecture feels surprisingly sophisticated. Visitors often struggle to believe it was built more than 2 millennia ago. The purpose of Brochs remains one of archaeology's enduring mysteries. Some researchers believe they functioned as defensive towers. The thick walls certainly offered protection. Others argue they served as symbols of status and power. Perhaps local leaders lived within them. Perhaps they demonstrated wealth and influence to neighbouring communities. Still others believe the towers may have fulfilled multiple roles at different times. The evidence supports several possibilities, but no single explanation has been universally accepted. The settlement surrounding the Broch provides additional clues. Archaeologists uncovered homes, workshops, storage areas, and everyday objects revealing details of daily life. People cooked meals here, raised families here, worked, traded, and interacted within the shadow of the Great Tower. The Broch was not isolated. It stood at the centre of a living community. One discovery particularly fascinated researchers. Evidence suggests that the people of Gurnes maintained connections beyond Orkney. Imported goods reached the islands from distant regions. Trade linked these remote communities to wider networks across Britain and beyond. The windswept islands were not cut off from the world. They were active participants in it. The location itself may explain some of the Broch's importance. Positioned beside a natural harbour, the settlement overlooked routes used by travellers and traders moving through northern waters. Anyone approaching by sea would have seen the tower rising above the shoreline. It must have been an impressive sight, a visible statement of strength and permanence. Yet eventually life at Gurnes began to change. New political realities emerged, communities evolved, the tower lost its original role, the settlement gradually declined, buildings collapsed, roofs disappeared, the great stone structure fell into ruin. For centuries the site remained exposed to Atlantic storms. Wind swept across the abandoned walls, grass covered ancient foundations. The memory of the people who built the Broch slowly faded, yet the stones endured, waiting beneath the northern sky. Today, the Broch of Gurnes remains one of the best preserved Iron Age settlements in Scotland. Not because of treasure, not because of famous battles, but because it preserves a rare glimpse into a mysterious society that left behind remarkable monuments and even more remarkable questions. On a windswept island stands a forgotten stone tower, a monument built by a people whose story is still being uncovered, a masterpiece of Iron Age engineering. And one of the most fascinating mysteries in the North Atlantic world, the forgotten sanctuary carved into a cliff face. High in the mountains of northern Turkey, clinging to a sheer rock wall hundreds of feet above the valley below, stands one of the most extraordinary sanctuaries ever built. From a distance, it seems impossible. A monastery hanging from the side of a cliff, its walls emerging directly from the stone, its buildings suspended between mountain and sky. For centuries, travellers crossing these rugged landscapes looked up in amazement at the site. How was it built? Why was it built here? And how did generations of people survive in such an isolated place? This remarkable sanctuary is known as Sumela Monastery, and its story is one of faith, endurance, and survival in one of the most dramatic landscapes on Earth. The monastery stands within the Pontic Mountains overlooking a densely forested valley near the Black Sea coast. Today, visitors must follow winding mountain roads and steep pathways to reach it. Even with modern transportation, the journey feels challenging. That makes the achievement of its builders all the more remarkable. Centuries ago, every stone, timber and supply had to be carried into the mountains by human effort alone. The location itself appears almost impossible. The complex is built directly into a vertical cliff face more than 300 metres above the valley floor. From below, the white walls seem to float against the dark rock. Mist often drifts through the mountains, partially hiding the monastery from view. At certain times of day, the sanctuary appears and disappears among the clouds. It is easy to understand why generations considered the place sacred. According to tradition, the monastery's origins stretch back more than 16 centuries. Legend tells of monks who discovered a sacred icon hidden within a cave in the mountains. Drawn to the site, they established a place of worship beside the cliff. Whether the story is entirely true remains uncertain, but archaeological evidence confirms that Christian communities occupied the area for many centuries. Over time, the small sanctuary grew into a major religious centre. One of the most fascinating aspects of Sumela is how naturally it blends into the mountain itself. Parts of the complex were constructed against the cliff. Other sections were built directly into natural caves. The builders adapted their architecture to the landscape rather than attempting to reshape it. The result feels less like a building and more like an extension of the mountain. Inside the monastery, visitors encounter courtyards, chapels, living quarters, libraries, and hidden passageways. Many walls contain colourful frescoes depicting religious scenes. Despite centuries of exposure, some paintings remain surprisingly vibrant. These artworks offer valuable glimpses into the spiritual world of the people who lived here. The monastery was far more than a place of prayer. It functioned as a community. Monks studied here, copied manuscripts here, welcomed travellers here, and preserved knowledge during periods of political uncertainty. For generations, Sumela served as both a sanctuary and a cultural centre. One mystery that continues to intrigue historians involves the logistics of daily life. How were supplies transported to such an inaccessible location? How did large numbers of people live here year after year? Archaeologists and historians believe sophisticated systems existed for moving food, water, and materials up the mountainside. Yet the practical challenges remain impressive even by modern standards. The monastery also survived dramatic changes throughout history. Empires rose and fell across the region. Trade routes shifted. Wars transformed political boundaries. Yet Sumela endured. Its isolated position may have helped protect it during some of these turbulent periods. For centuries it remained a recognisable landmark in the mountains, a place known to pilgrims and travellers alike. Eventually, however, changing circumstances led to its abandonment. The buildings fell silent. The resident communities disappeared. Nature slowly began reclaiming parts of the complex. Weather-damaged structures, vegetation spread across walls. The mountain once again started absorbing the sanctuary into itself. Yet unlike many ancient sites, Sumela never vanished completely. Its dramatic appearance ensured that people remembered it. Explorers, historians, and archaeologists continued studying the monastery and its history. Today, restoration efforts help preserve what remains. Visitors from around the world travel into the mountains to see the sanctuary for themselves. Not because of treasure, not because of conquest, but because few places demonstrate human determination so vividly. High above a forested valley stands a forgotten sanctuary carved into a cliff face, a monastery suspended between earth and sky, a monument to faith and perseverance, and one of the most extraordinary architectural wonders ever built in the mountains of the ancient world. The mysterious ruins found along an ancient caravan route. Deep in the deserts of Saudi Arabia lie the ruins of a city that once stood at the crossroads of one of the ancient world's most important trade networks. A city where caravans arrived from distant kingdoms, where merchants exchanged goods from across Arabia, and where travellers stopped before continuing their journeys through some of the harshest landscapes on earth. For centuries, the city flourished. Then it vanished. Its buildings collapsed, its streets disappeared beneath the desert, and eventually history almost forgot it existed. Today, only ruins remain. Yet those ruins tell the story of a place that once connected worlds. This remarkable site is known as Qaryat al-Faw, and it remains one of the most fascinating archaeological discoveries ever made in Arabia. The city sits at the edge of the empty quarter, one of the largest deserts on Earth. At first glance, the surrounding landscape appears unforgiving. Vast stretches of sand extend toward the horizon. Rocky hills rise from the desert floor. Water is scarce. Life seems difficult. Yet thousands of years ago, this location occupied a strategic position along major caravan routes crossing the Arabian Peninsula. Merchants travelling between southern Arabia and the northern kingdoms often passed through the region. Qaryat al-Faw became a vital stop along that journey. The The city flourished between roughly the first millennium BC and the early centuries AD. During that time, Arabia was far from isolated. Trade routes carried incense, spices, textiles, precious metals, and luxury goods across enormous distances. Caravans moved through deserts connecting distant civilizations. Qaryat al-Fair stood directly within this network. Its prosperity depended on movement, commerce, and communication. One of the most fascinating aspects of the site is how much archaeologists have uncovered. Excavations revealed houses, streets, temples, markets, workshops, and cemeteries spread across a surprisingly large area. The discoveries transformed scholarly understanding of ancient Arabia. For many years, people assumed much of the peninsula consisted primarily of scattered nomadic communities. Qaryat al-Faw revealed something very different. A sophisticated urban centre thriving in the desert. This city also produced an extraordinary collection of inscriptions. These texts provide rare glimpses into the language, culture, and daily life of the people who lived there. Ancient Arabia left relatively few written records compared to neighbouring civilizations. Every inscription recovered from the site helps fill important gaps in history. Through these discoveries, forgotten voices have begun speaking again after centuries of silence. Archaeologists also uncovered evidence of impressive artistic traditions. Murals decorated walls, sculptures adorned important buildings, decorative objects reflected influences from multiple cultures. The city was clearly connected to a wider world. Ideas travelled alongside goods. Foreign influences blended with local traditions. Qaryat al-Faw became a cultural crossroads as well as a commercial one. One mystery continues to intrigue researchers. Exactly how large was the city's influence? Trade routes stretched across thousands of kilometres. Goods arriving in Qaryat al-Faw may have originated from distant regions of the Mediterranean, Mesopotamia, East Africa, and southern Arabia. The settlement occupied a position that allowed it to benefit from interactions between many different worlds. Yet much of that network remains only partially understood. The surrounding desert also played a role in preserving the ruins. After the city's decline, shifting sands gradually covered parts of the settlement. Buildings collapsed. Streets disappeared. The desert concealed what generations had built. For centuries, travellers crossed the region unaware that an ancient city rested beneath the ground. The reasons for the city's decline remain uncertain. Trade routes changed. Political conditions evolved. New centres of commerce emerged elsewhere. Gradually, the flow of wealth and travellers decreased. The city lost its importance, its population shrank, and eventually it was abandoned. The caravan routes that once brought prosperity no longer passed through its streets. Yet even in ruin, Qaryat al-Faw remained remarkable. The desert preserved traces of houses, temples, and marketplaces that would otherwise have vanished completely. Modern archaeology has revealed enough to reconstruct much of the city's story, but many questions remain unanswered. Today, Qaryat al-Faw stands as one of the most important archaeological sites in Saudi Arabia, not because of treasure, not because of military conquest, but because it reveals a thriving urban civilization hidden within one of the world's most challenging environments. Along an ancient caravan route lie the ruins of a forgotten city, a crossroads of merchants, travellers, and cultures, a place where desert trade once connected distant worlds, and one of the most remarkable lost cities in Arabian history. The giant stone tomb hidden in the mountains. Long before the pyramids dominated the Egyptian desert, people in southern Spain were building something extraordinary, a giant stone monument, constructed from blocks weighing dozens of tons, hidden beneath an artificial hill, and aligned toward a mysterious mountain that still dominates the landscape today. For thousands of years, the structure remained sealed beneath the earth. Its builders vanished, their beliefs disappeared, and their purpose was forgotten. Yet the monument endured, waiting silently beneath the hills of Andalusia. Today, it is known as the Menga Dolmen, and it remains one of the most astonishing prehistoric structures ever created in Europe. The tomb stands near the modern town of Antequera in southern Spain. At first glance, it appears as a grassy mound rising gently from the landscape. Many visitors would never guess that an enormous stone chamber lies hidden inside. But beneath the earth is one of the largest megalithic monuments on the continent. The structure was built roughly 5,500 years ago. That makes it older than many famous monuments around the world. Its builders belonged to prehistoric farming communities who left behind no written records. Everything known about them comes from archaeology, and what archaeology reveals is remarkable. The entrance leads into a massive stone passageway supported by gigantic upright slabs. Some of these stones weigh more than 150 tons. Even today, moving such blocks would require significant planning and machinery. Yet prehistoric builders somehow transported them across the landscape using only simple tools and human effort. How exactly they accomplished this remains one of the site's greatest mysteries. The chamber itself is enormous. Visitors walking inside often feel surprised by its size. Huge capstones stretch overhead. Massive pillars support the roof. The scale feels more like a stone cathedral than a prehistoric tomb. The builders clearly intended to create something impressive, something that would endure. One of the most fascinating aspects of Menga is its unusual alignment. Most megalithic tombs in Europe were oriented toward the rising sun or important celestial events. Menga is different. Instead of facing the sunrise, the entrance points toward a distinctive mountain known as Peña de los Enamorados. The mountain rises dramatically above the surrounding landscape. From certain angles, its profile resembles a human face lying on its back. The connection appears deliberate. The tomb and mountain seem linked in a way archaeologists are still trying to understand. Why would prehistoric builders orient a monument toward a mountain rather than the sky? The answer remains uncertain. Some researchers believe the mountain may have held spiritual significance. Others think it formed part of a sacred landscape, connecting natural features with human-made monuments. Whatever the reason, the alignment appears intentional, and it continues to puzzle experts today. Excavations inside the tomb revealed evidence that many people were buried here over long periods of time. Human remains, grave goods, and artifacts suggest the monument served generations of communities. The dead were carefully placed within the chamber. Ceremonies likely took place here. Memories were preserved here. The tomb became more than a burial place. It became a centre of social and spiritual life. Another mystery lies beneath the floor itself. Archaeologists discovered a deep well dug into the chamber. The shaft extends far below ground level. Its purpose remains debated. Was it symbolic? Was it practical? Did it hold ritual significance? No definitive answer has emerged. The well only adds to the monument's mystery. The landscape surrounding Menga also contains other megalithic monuments. Together they form one of the most important prehistoric complexes in Europe. The builders clearly invested enormous effort into shaping this region. Stone by stone, generation after generation, they transformed the landscape into something meaningful, yet their beliefs remain largely unknown. For thousands of years, the monument survived wars, invasions, and changing civilizations. Romans passed through the region. Medieval kingdoms rose and fell. Empires came and went. Still, the tomb endured beneath its grassy mound, protected by the earth itself. Today, the Menga dolmen is recognized as one of the greatest achievements of prehistoric engineering. Not because of treasure, not because of famous rulers, but because it demonstrates what ancient communities could accomplish long before written history began. Hidden in the mountains of southern Spain lies a giant stone tomb, a monument older than many of the world's most famous structures, a masterpiece of prehistoric construction, and one of the most fascinating mysteries of the ancient world. The massive stone ruins found in the Andes. High in the mountains of Peru stand the ruins of a site so ancient that it was already old when the Inca Empire appeared. A place of giant stone walls, hidden passageways, mysterious carvings, and underground chambers that still puzzle archaeologists today. For centuries, people travelled here from distant regions. Pilgrims climbed into the Andes seeking guidance, rituals, and perhaps something even more mysterious. Yet despite decades of study, many questions remain unanswered. Who built this place? Why was it constructed so high in the mountains? And what purpose did its strange underground labyrinth serve? This remarkable site is known as Chavin de Huántar, and it remains one of the most important archaeological mysteries in South America. The ruins lie deep within the Peruvian Andes at an elevation of more than 3,000 meters above sea level. Surrounded by towering peaks and steep valleys, the location feels isolated even today. Yet thousands of years ago, this was one of the most influential ceremonial centers in the ancient Americas. Long before the rise of the Inca, people from across the region travelled here. The site flourished between roughly 900 and 200 BC. At that time, civilizations throughout the Andes were beginning to develop increasingly complex societies. Among them, the Chavin culture became one of the most influential. Its artistic styles spread across vast areas of Peru, its religious ideas reached distant communities, and its ceremonial centre stood at the heart of it all. One of the first things visitors notice is the massive stone architecture. Large terraces rise above the landscape. Monumental walls surround plazas and ceremonial spaces. The builders carefully shaped enormous stone blocks and assembled them with remarkable precision. Even after more than 2,000 years, many sections remain standing. The scale alone suggests that Chavin de Huántar was far more than a simple village. It was a place of extraordinary importance. One of the most fascinating features lies beneath the surface. Hidden inside the monument is a network of narrow stone corridors and underground galleries. These passageways twist through the interior like a maze. Some are completely dark. Others contain small chambers hidden deep within the structure. Walking through them today feels almost surreal. Researchers believe these spaces played an important role in religious ceremonies, but exactly how they were used remains uncertain. At the centre of the labyrinth stands one of the site's most famous objects, a massive carved stone known as the lanzon. Standing more than 4 meters tall, the monument depicts a powerful supernatural figure combining human and animal features, jaguar fangs, clawed hands, and an intense expression carved into stone. For centuries, this sacred image remained hidden inside the temple's interior. Only select individuals may have ever seen it. The meaning of the figure continues to be debated, yet it clearly held enormous importance for the people who built the sanctuary. The site is also famous for its remarkable stone carvings. Many depict strange creatures blending characteristics of humans, birds, snakes, and large predators. These images appear throughout the architecture. Some researchers believe they represent religious visions or supernatural beings. Others suggest they symbolize transformation between the human and spiritual worlds. Whatever their meaning, the artwork remains among the most distinctive in ancient America. Another mystery involves sound. Archaeologists discovered that parts of the monument were carefully designed to manipulate acoustics. Passageways amplify noises. Certain chambers create unusual echoes. Water flowing through hidden channels may have produced dramatic sounds during ceremonies. The builders appear to have understood how architecture could influence human experience. The temple was not merely a building. It was an environment designed to inspire awe. The location itself may have contributed to its power. Situated near the meeting point of important mountain routes, Chavin de Huántar occupied a strategic position connecting different regions of the Andes. People from distant communities could gather here. Ideas could spread here. Religious traditions could unite diverse populations. The sanctuary became a centre of influence extending far beyond its mountain valley. Yet eventually something changed. The ceremonial centre declined. Pilgrims stopped arriving. The temples fell silent. The culture that created the monument gradually faded from prominence. The reasons remain uncertain. Political shifts, environmental changes, new religious traditions. Any combination of factors may have played a role. Over time, the great sanctuary was abandoned. For centuries, the ruins stood quietly among the mountains. Storms swept across the Andes. Civilizations rose and fell. The Inca came and went. Yet the stone complex endured, waiting beneath the highland sky. Today, Chavin de Huántar is recognized as one of the most important archaeological sites in the Americas, not because of treasure, not because of conquest, but because it reveals the beliefs, engineering, and imagination of a civilization that flourished long before the most famous empires of South America. High in the Andes stand massive stone ruins, a sanctuary of underground labyrinths and mysterious carvings, a center of pilgrimage and ritual, and one of the greatest archaeological mysteries ever discovered in the mountains of Peru, the ancient city buried by centuries of sandstorms. High in the mountains of central Afghanistan stand the ruins of a city that was once among the most important strongholds in the region, a city protected by towering cliffs, fortified by massive walls, and built in one of the most dramatic landscapes in Asia. For centuries, rulers controlled the surrounding valleys from this position. Armies marched through its gates, merchants crossed nearby trade routes, and generations of people called the city home. Then war, destruction and time transformed it into a silent ruin. Its buildings collapsed, its streets disappeared beneath dust and sand, and the winds of the mountains slowly buried its story. Today, the site is known as Shar-e-Golgola, often translated as the City of Screams, and it remains one of the most haunting archaeological sites in Central Asia. The ruins overlook the Bamyan Valley, a region famous for its towering cliffs and ancient cultural heritage. The setting is breathtaking. Mountain ranges stretch across the horizon, green agricultural fields occupy the valley floor, and above it all rises a rocky hill crowned by the remains of an ancient fortress city. Even in ruin, the location commands attention. Anyone standing on its walls can see why it was chosen. The position offers natural defences and clear views across the surrounding landscape. The city's origins stretch back many centuries. By the medieval period, it had become an important regional centre. Its elevated position made it both a fortress and a place of administration. People lived within its walls. Markets operated here. Defenders guarded the approaches. Life continued much as it had in countless fortified cities throughout history. But Shar-e-Golgola would eventually become famous for a very different reason: its connection to one of the most dramatic invasions in history. In the early 13th century, the armies of Genghis Khan swept across much of Asia. Cities fell before them. Kingdoms collapsed. Entire regions were transformed. According to historical accounts, the siege of Shar-e-Golgola became one of the most intense episodes of that campaign. The defenders resisted fiercely. The city refused to surrender easily. For a time, its walls held. Yet eventually the fortress was overwhelmed. What followed entered regional legend. Stories describe widespread destruction and devastation. The site's nickname, the City of Screams, is often linked to memories of those events. Although some details may have grown through centuries of storytelling, there is little doubt that the city's fall left a deep impression on local history. One of the most fascinating aspects of the site is how much still survives. Visitors can walk among collapsed walls, defensive structures, foundations, and ancient pathways. The outline of the city remains visible across the hilltop. Archaeologists have identified residential areas, fortifications, and other important features revealing how the settlement once functioned. Despite centuries of erosion, the city's overall layout can still be recognized. The environment played a major role in shaping its fate. Strong winds move through the valley year after year. Dust accumulates. Structures slowly erode. Sand and soil gradually cover abandoned ruins. Generation after generation, the landscape worked to reclaim what humans had built. What survived did so because of the strength of its construction and the dryness of the climate. The city also occupied an important position along routes connecting different parts of Central Asia. Travellers, traders, and armies moved through the region for centuries. Ideas flowed across these mountain corridors. Cultures interacted here. Shar-e-Golgola was never isolated. It stood within a network linking distant worlds. Yet after its destruction, the city never fully recovered. Political centres shifted elsewhere. New settlements emerged. The fortress gradually lost its importance. Its population disappeared. Its buildings crumbled, and the mountain winds continued their slow work. For centuries, the ruins watched silently over the Bamyan Valley. Empires rose and fell around them. Caravans passed below. History moved on. Yet the city remained. A reminder of both human achievement and human vulnerability. Today, Shar-e-Golgola stands as one of Afghanistan's most important archaeological sites, not because of treasure, not because of monumental architecture, but because it preserves the memory of a city that witnessed some of the most dramatic events in medieval history. High above the Bamyan Valley lie the remains of an ancient city, a fortress shaped by trade, war, and time, a settlement buried by centuries of wind and sand, and one of the most haunting forgotten ruins in the mountains of Central Asia, the stone citadel built above the desert. Beneath the streets of a quiet Iranian town lies a hidden city that remained concealed for centuries, a city of tunnels, secret chambers, underground passageways, and entire neighbourhoods carved beneath the desert. For generations, people lived above it without fully understanding the scale of what existed below. Then a chance discovery revealed something extraordinary. An entire underground world hidden beneath the sands. A place built for survival. A place designed to disappear. and one of the most remarkable ancient cities ever discovered beneath a modern settlement. This forgotten place is known as Nushabad, and its story reveals how people adapted to danger in one of the harshest environments on Earth. The modern town of Nushabad sits on the edge of Iran's central desert region. At first glance, nothing appears unusual. Narrow streets wind between traditional buildings. Daily life unfolds much as it has for generations. Yet beneath the town lies a vast underground complex extending across multiple levels. Researchers believe parts of the hidden city were first constructed more than 1,500 years ago. The underground network stretches beneath large sections of the settlement. Passageways connect chambers. Stairways descend into deeper levels. Hidden routes link one area to another. The deeper archaeologists explored, the larger the city appeared. What began as a simple discovery soon became one of Iran's most fascinating archaeological sites. One of the most remarkable aspects of Nushabad is its complexity. This was not a single tunnel, nor was it merely a collection of storage rooms. The underground city contains living spaces, ventilation shafts, corridors, defensive passages, and carefully planned escape routes. Entire families could shelter here during times of danger. The design suggests long-term occupation rather than temporary refuge. The builders clearly understood engineering. Fresh air circulated through vertical shafts. Temperatures remained cooler underground than on the desert surface. Even during intense summer heat, the hidden city provided protection from the environment. In many ways, it functioned as a second settlement existing beneath the first. One mystery that continues to intrigue researchers is exactly how many people used the underground complex. The tunnels extend for considerable distances. Some sections remain unexplored, others may still be buried beneath modern structures. Every excavation reveals new details about the scale of the network. The true size of the hidden city may never be fully known. Archaeologists believe the underground settlement served an important defensive purpose. Throughout history, the region experienced periods of instability, invasions, and conflict. When danger approached, residents could disappear below ground. Narrow passageways made movement difficult for intruders. Multiple levels created natural defensive advantages. What appeared to be an ordinary town on the surface concealed a carefully designed refuge below. The city also demonstrates remarkable planning. Entrances were often hidden within homes or buildings. Passageways twisted through the earth in ways that could confuse outsiders. Storage areas allowed supplies to be kept underground. Some chambers appear to have been used for daily activities during extended periods of occupation. This was a place built with survival in mind. Another fascinating aspect is how completely the city vanished from wider awareness. Over centuries, portions of the underground network were forgotten. Entrances collapsed. Knowledge passed through fewer generations. Eventually, much of the hidden city disappeared from public memory. Then, during modern construction work, workers unexpectedly uncovered one of the entrances. What followed astonished archaeologists. Beneath the town lay a vast underground world waiting to be rediscovered. The desert environment helped preserve many sections of the complex. Dry conditions slowed deterioration. The earth protected walls and passageways from weather. As a result, significant portions survived remarkably well. Walking through the tunnels today feels like entering another dimension of the city, a hidden world existing just beneath the surface. Yet despite growing research, mysteries remain. How extensive was the original network? How often was it used? How many generations expanded the system? The answers remain buried within the tunnels themselves. Each new excavation reveals another piece of the puzzle. Today, Nushabad stands as one of the most extraordinary underground cities ever discovered. Not because of treasure, not because of famous rulers, but because it demonstrates the ingenuity of ordinary people determined to survive in an unpredictable world. Beneath a desert town lies a hidden stone citadel, a labyrinth of tunnels carved beneath the earth, a city built in secret, and one of the most remarkable forgotten worlds ever uncovered beneath the sands of the Middle East, the ancient settlement revealed by drought. For thousands of years, an ancient city remained hidden beneath the waters of a reservoir in northern Iraq. Its walls, its buildings, its streets, all buried beneath a lake and forgotten by time. Then something unexpected happened. A severe drought caused water levels to fall dramatically. As the shoreline retreated, ruins began emerging from the water. Stone walls appeared where waves had once covered them. Ancient structures rose from the mud. and archaeologists suddenly found themselves racing against time. What they discovered was extraordinary. A lost settlement preserved beneath the lake for decades, a city connected to one of the great civilizations of the ancient Near East, and a place that had remained hidden for more than 3,000 years. This remarkable site is known as Kemun, and its sudden appearance became one of the most fascinating archaeological stories of recent years. The ruins lie along the Tigris River in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. Today, the area is partially covered by the Mosul Dam reservoir. When the dam was constructed, large sections of the ancient landscape disappeared beneath rising waters. Many archaeological sites were lost from view, some were studied before flooding, others vanished completely. Kemun appeared to be one of those lost places. Then nature intervened. During periods of extreme drought, water levels dropped far enough to expose large sections of the buried settlement. For archaeologists, the opportunity was both exciting and urgent. The city might remain visible for only a short time before water returned. Teams quickly moved to document, excavate, and preserve as much information as possible. Every day mattered. The discoveries soon revealed that Kemun was far more significant than anyone had expected. Massive stone walls emerged from the shoreline. Some stood several meters high. Rooms and buildings became visible. The quality of preservation astonished researchers. After centuries underground and decades beneath water, substantial parts of the settlement had survived. One of the most fascinating aspects of the site is its connection to the Mitanni Empire. The Mitanni were among the most powerful civilizations of the ancient Near East during the 2nd millennium BC. Their kingdom controlled large territories across parts of modern Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. Yet compared to Egypt, Babylon, or Assyria, they remain relatively mysterious. Many of their cities have not survived. Written records are limited. Every new discovery helps fill important gaps in history. Kemun may have been one of their important regional centres. Archaeologists uncovered evidence of large administrative buildings, storage areas, and substantial architecture suggesting the settlement held considerable importance. This was not a small village. It was a significant city connected to wider political and economic networks. The site also produced a remarkable surprise. Researchers discovered clay tablets containing ancient writing. Such finds are incredibly valuable. Written documents can reveal names, events, trade relationships, and administrative activities that archaeology alone cannot provide. Although scholars continue studying the tablets, they offer a rare opportunity to learn directly from the people who once lived here. The preservation of the city remains something of a mystery. How did so much survive? Some researchers believe a devastating earthquake may have caused parts of the settlement to collapse rapidly. The fallen structures may then have protected lower levels from later damage. In addition, layers of mud and sediment helped seal sections of the city for centuries. Ironically, the water that eventually covered the site may also have contributed to its preservation. The race against time became one of the most dramatic parts of the excavation. Archaeologists knew the reservoir could refill at any moment. Every trench had to be carefully planned. Every discovery had to be documented quickly. In some areas, protective coverings were installed before rising waters returned. The goal was not only to study the city but to preserve it for future generations. Kemun also highlights how many ancient sites remain hidden across the world. Some lie beneath deserts, others beneath forests, and some, like this one, beneath lakes and reservoirs. Entire chapters of human history may still be waiting to reappear. The city reminds us that archaeology is often shaped by chance. A drought exposed the ruins, a brief window opened, and suddenly a forgotten world returned to the surface. Today, Kemun stands as one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries in recent years. Not because of gold, not because of famous kings, but because it provided a rare glimpse into a civilization that remains largely unknown. An ancient settlement hidden beneath water, a city revealed by drought, a lost chapter of the Mitanni world emerging from the lake, and one of the most extraordinary rediscoveries of the modern archaeological age, the lost city protected by giant walls. High in the mountains of central Italy lie the ruins of a city once protected by some of the most impressive defensive walls in the ancient world. Massive stone blocks stretch across the landscape. Ancient gateways still stand after more than 2,000 years, and the remains of streets, temples, and public buildings reveal a settlement that once played an important role in Roman history. Today, the city is silent. Its inhabitants are long gone, Its buildings have fallen into ruin, yet the enormous walls remain, guarding the mountain slopes just as they did centuries ago. This remarkable place is known as Alba Fusens, and it remains one of Italy's most fascinating forgotten cities. The ruins sit on a plateau overlooking what was once Lake Fucinus, one of the largest lakes in ancient Italy. The location was carefully chosen. Mountains provided natural protection. Important routes passed nearby, and anyone approaching the settlement could be seen from a considerable distance. For ancient builders, it was an ideal defensive position. The city's story began in the 4th century BC when the Romans established a colony in the region. At the time, Rome was expanding its influence across the Italian peninsula. Strategic settlements like Alba Fusens helped secure newly conquered territories and protect important routes. The city quickly became one of the most significant Roman strongholds in central Italy. Yet what immediately captures attention today are the walls. Stretching for nearly 3 kilometres around the settlement, they were built from enormous limestone blocks fitted together with remarkable precision. Some stones weigh several tons. Despite their size, the builders shaped and positioned them so carefully that many sections remain standing after more than 2 millennia. Walking beside these walls today feels almost surreal. The scale is difficult to appreciate until standing directly beneath them. One of the most fascinating mysteries concerns construction. How were such massive stones transported and placed in position? Ancient builders lacked modern machinery, yet they created fortifications capable of surviving earthquakes, invasions, and centuries of weathering. Their engineering skills remain deeply impressive. The walls also reveal something important about the dangers of the ancient world. Defensive structures of this size required enormous resources. Communities built them because protection mattered. The city occupied a frontier region where security could never be taken for granted. Within the walls stood a thriving settlement. Archaeologists uncovered roads, houses, temples, baths, and public spaces revealing everyday life in the city. Markets operated here, officials governed here, families raised children here. Alba Fusens was not merely a military outpost, it was a living community. One of the city's most important features was its strategic location. Roads connecting different parts of Italy passed nearby. Armies moving through the region often encountered the settlement. Because of this position, Alba Fusens occasionally became involved in major historical events. Roman leaders used it as a secure location for holding important prisoners and political rivals. Its strong defences and remote setting made escape difficult. The city also witnessed the changing fortunes of the Roman world. As centuries passed, political systems evolved. Trade patterns shifted. New centres of power emerged elsewhere. Yet Alba Fusens continued functioning for generations. The settlement adapted to changing circumstances while maintaining its importance. One particularly fascinating aspect of the site is the view. From the ancient walls, visitors can see across valleys and mountains stretching toward the horizon. Ancient defenders enjoyed the same perspective. They could monitor roads, observe approaching travellers, and watch over the surrounding countryside. The landscape itself formed part of the city's defence system. Eventually, however, Alba Fusens entered a period of decline. Economic changes affected the region. Population shifted. Political priorities moved elsewhere. The once busy city gradually lost its importance. Buildings fell into disrepair, streets emptied, and nature slowly began reclaiming the settlement. For centuries the ruins remained scattered across the mountain plateau. Travellers passed nearby. Local communities reused some of the ancient stone, yet much of the city survived, waiting for archaeologists to uncover its story. Today, Alba Fusens stands as one of the most impressive archaeological sites in Italy. Not because of imperial palaces, not because of vast treasures, but because it preserves an entire ancient city surrounded by some of the finest defensive walls ever constructed by Roman engineers. High above the valleys of central Italy lies a lost city protected by giant walls, a fortress of stone overlooking the mountains, a forgotten stronghold of the ancient world, and one of the most remarkable archaeological treasures still standing today. The forgotten metropolis buried beneath layers of history. Hidden among the rolling hills of eastern Portugal lie the remains of a city that once stood at the edge of the Roman world. A city of temples, markets, bathhouses, and paved streets. A place where merchants, officials, and travellers gathered nearly 2,000 years ago. Yet unlike famous Roman cities that remained visible through the centuries, this settlement slowly vanished beneath the landscape. Fields covered its buildings, soil buried its streets, and generation after generation passed without realizing that an entire city rested beneath their feet. Today, archaeologists know this forgotten place as Amaya, and its story reveals how even thriving cities can disappear almost completely from history. The ruins are located within Portugal's Serra de São Mamadé region, an area of gentle hills, fertile valleys, and natural beauty. At first glance, the landscape appears peaceful and ordinary. Nothing immediately suggests that a major Roman city once occupied the area. Yet beneath the ground lie the remains of one of the most important settlements in ancient Lusitania, the Roman province that covered much of modern Portugal. Amaya was founded during the early Roman Empire, at a time when Roman influence stretched across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. New cities emerged throughout the empire. Some developed around military camps. Others grew from existing communities. Amaya became one of the important urban centres connecting the interior of the Iberian Peninsula to wider Roman trade networks. The city flourished. Roads linked it to neighbouring settlements. Merchants moved goods through its markets. Farmers supplied food from the surrounding countryside, and public buildings reflected the wealth and organisation of Roman society. Like countless cities across the empire, Amaya became part of a vast interconnected world. One of the most fascinating aspects of the site is how completely it disappeared. Many Roman cities remained continuously occupied. New generations built over older structures. Ancient streets evolved into modern ones. Amaya followed a different path. After its decline, much of the settlement was gradually abandoned. Buildings collapsed. Stone was removed and reused elsewhere. Vegetation spread across the ruins. Over centuries, natural processes buried much of the city beneath layers of soil. By the modern era, only scattered traces remained visible. For archaeologists, this created both a challenge and an opportunity. Much of the city survived underground. Instead of being destroyed by centuries of construction, large portions remained hidden and relatively undisturbed. Modern research techniques have played a major role in uncovering its secrets. Ground-penetrating radar, aerial surveys, remote sensing technologies. These tools allow researchers to map buried streets and structures without extensive excavation. The result has been a remarkable reconstruction of a city that spent centuries hidden beneath the landscape. Excavations revealed impressive remains, sections of the forum, the political and social centre of the city, public baths where residents gathered, residential neighbourhoods, roads lined with stone paving. Every discovery adds another piece to the puzzle. Together they reveal a sophisticated urban centre that once thrived far from Rome itself. One mystery that continues to intrigue historians involves the city's decline. Why did Amaya disappear? No single catastrophe appears responsible. There is no evidence of a sudden volcanic eruption or dramatic destruction. Instead, the decline seems to have been gradual. Economic changes, political instability, shifting trade routes, the slow transformation of the Roman world. Any combination of these factors may have contributed. As the empire weakened, many regional cities faced challenges. Some adapted, others faded away. Amaya appears to have followed the second path. The surrounding landscape may have helped preserve the ruins. Agricultural activity covered ancient foundations with protective layers of earth. Collapsed buildings became buried rather than removed entirely. Over time, the city effectively disappeared beneath its own history. Each century added another layer. The deeper the city sank into the past, the more completely it vanished from memory. Yet traces always remained. Fragments of stone, pieces of pottery, scattered clues waiting to be understood. Eventually, archaeology began uncovering the forgotten metropolis. What emerged surprised researchers. The city was larger and more sophisticated than many had expected. Its remains provided valuable insights into life on the western frontier of the Roman Empire. Today, Amaya stands as one of Portugal's most important archaeological sites, not because of enormous monuments, not because of famous emperors, but because it demonstrates how entire cities can vanish beneath the landscape and still survive. Hidden beneath fields and hills lies a forgotten metropolis, a city buried beneath layers of history, a lost chapter of the Roman world, and one of the most remarkable archaeological rediscoveries in Western Europe. The ancient ruins found along a forgotten river. In the vast landscapes of West Africa lie the ruins of a city that flourished long before many of the world's most famous medieval kingdoms, a city of traders, craftsmen, farmers, and merchants, a place where thousands of people lived beside a network of rivers that once connected distant communities across the region. Yet for centuries, much of its story remained hidden. The city left behind no towering pyramids, no massive stone fortresses, and few monuments visible from a distance. Instead, its importance was buried beneath the earth, waiting for archaeologists to uncover one of Africa's most remarkable forgotten civilizations. This extraordinary place is known as Geno, and it has transformed what historians know about the ancient history of West Africa. The ruins are located in modern Mali near the inland Niger Delta, one of the most important river systems on the African continent. Today, parts of the landscape appear dry and quiet, but in the past, waterways connected settlements across enormous distances. Rivers served as highways, goods moved between communities, ideas spread, and people built thriving societies along the fertile floodplains. Geno emerged within this environment. The settlement began more than 2,000 years ago. At a time when many people imagined West Africa consisted primarily of scattered villages, Geno was already developing into a substantial urban centre. Generation after generation expanded the community. Homes multiplied, neighbourhoods grew, trade increased. Eventually, the city became one of the largest settlements in the region. One of the most fascinating aspects of Geno is that it challenges long-standing assumptions about urban development. For many years, historians believed large cities generally emerged under powerful kings or centralised governments. Geno appears to have followed a different path. Rather than being dominated by a single palace or ruler, the settlement seems to have consisted of multiple interconnected communities working together. The city grew through cooperation rather than monumental authority. Archaeologists uncovered evidence of extensive trade networks linking the settlement to distant regions. Iron tools, pottery, copper objects, glass beads, and imported materials reveal a society connected to wider economic systems. Goods travelled across rivers and trade routes long before European explorers reached the area. Geno was not isolated. It was part of a vibrant and interconnected world. Excavations also revealed evidence of highly skilled craftspeople. Metalworkers produced iron tools and equipment. Potters created ceramic vessels used throughout daily life. Specialised industries developed within different parts of the settlement. The city supported a diverse population with a wide range of occupations. This level of organisation suggests a society far more complex than early researchers once imagined. Another remarkable discovery involved the size of the settlement itself. At its peak, Geno covered a surprisingly large area. Thousands of people may have lived there. Surrounding satellite communities formed a broader urban network extending across the floodplain. Rather than a single compact city, the settlement functioned as part of a larger landscape of interconnected communities. One mystery continues to intrigue archaeologists. Why did the city become so successful in this location? The answer likely involves the river system. Seasonal flooding created fertile agricultural land. Trade routes connected different regions. Fishing, farming and commerce supported growing populations. The rivers provided opportunities that few other environments could match. The city's fortunes rose alongside the waterways. Yet eventually circumstances changed. Trade patterns shifted. Political centres emerged elsewhere. New kingdoms rose across West Africa. Gradually, Geno declined. Its population decreased. Activity moved to other settlements nearby. The once thriving city slowly faded from prominence. Over time, the buildings collapsed. The streets disappeared. The landscape reclaimed what generations had built. For centuries, the ruins remained hidden beneath layers of earth beside the ancient waterways. Travellers passed nearby without realising that one of Africa's oldest cities rested, beneath the ground. Then archaeology began revealing its story. Every excavation challenged old assumptions. Every discovery expanded understanding of Africa's rich and complex past. Today, Geno stands as one of the most important archaeological sites in West Africa. Not because of giant monuments, not because of imperial conquests, but because it proves that sophisticated urban societies flourished along Africa's rivers long before many people believed possible. Along a forgotten river lie the ruins of an ancient city, a centre of trade, craftsmanship and innovation, a settlement that reshaped history. and one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries ever made in Africa, the Lost City, hidden in the mountains of Yemen. Hidden among the rugged mountains of Yemen lie the ruins of a city that once stood at the centre of one of the ancient world's most valuable trade networks. A city protected by enormous stone walls, a city filled with temples, markets and caravans, a place where merchants carrying precious cargo crossed vast deserts on journeys that connected Arabia to distant civilizations. For centuries the city prospered, then it faded from history. Its streets fell silent, its buildings crumbled, and the desert winds slowly carried away the memory of those who once lived there. Today, only ruins remain. Yet those ruins reveal the story of one of southern Arabia's most important forgotten cities. This remarkable place is known as Marrakesh, and it remains one of the most fascinating archaeological sites in Yemen. The city stands in the Jorf Valley, surrounded by mountains and desert landscapes that have changed little over thousands of years. Even today the location feels remote, yet in antiquity it occupied a strategic position along the famous incense trade routes. Long before oil transformed the Middle East, incense was among the most valuable commodities in the world. Frankincense and myrrh travelled across Arabia toward Egypt, the Mediterranean, and beyond. Merchants grew wealthy from this trade, and cities positioned along these routes flourished. Marrakesh was one of them. Known in antiquity as Yathil, the city became an important centre within the Kingdom of Main. The Manians, who controlled much of the incense trade, built prosperous settlements throughout the region. Marrakesh emerged as one of their most significant urban centres. Its wealth depended upon the movement of caravans. Every arriving caravan brought opportunity. Every departing caravan carried goods, news and connections to distant lands. One of the most impressive features of the city is its defensive wall. Large sections still survive today. Built from massive stone blocks, the fortifications once enclosed the entire settlement. Dozens of towers strengthened the defences. Even after centuries of damage, the walls remain among the best preserved examples of ancient Arabian military architecture. Standing beside them today, it is easy to imagine how imposing the city must have appeared to approaching travellers. Inside the walls, archaeologists uncovered evidence of temples, houses, streets, and public spaces. The city was carefully planned. Religious life played an important role. Several inscriptions discovered at the site provide valuable information about the people who lived here and the gods they worshipped. Such inscriptions are especially important because written evidence from ancient Arabia remains relatively rare. Every text helps illuminate a world that is still only partially understood. One of the most fascinating discoveries involves the city's connections to international trade. Marrakesh was not isolated. It stood within a network stretching across the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. Merchants travelling through the city may have encountered traders from distant regions. Goods moved through its markets, ideas travelled alongside commerce. The city became a crossroads linking cultures and economies. The surrounding environment also contributed to its success. The Jorf Valley provided access to water and agricultural land in an otherwise challenging landscape. Settlements that could control such resources often prospered. For generations, Marrakesh benefited from its position between fertile areas and major trade routes. Yet despite its advantages, the city eventually faced challenges. Political conditions changed, trade patterns shifted, new powers emerged across Arabia. As alternative routes developed, the flow of wealth that once sustained the settlement began to decline. The city's importance gradually faded, its population decreased, buildings fell into ruin, and the desert slowly reclaimed what generations had built. One event may have accelerated this process. Historical evidence suggests the city experienced periods of conflict and destruction. Invading armies passed through the region. Fortifications were damaged. Structures collapsed. Yet even after these hardships, traces of the city survived, protected by the dry climate and massive stone construction. For centuries, Marrakesh remained largely forgotten outside the local region. Travellers occasionally encountered the ruins, but few understood the significance of the place. Only modern archaeology began revealing the full story hidden within its walls. Today, Marrakesh stands as one of the most important archaeological sites in Yemen, not because of treasure, not because of giant monuments, but because it preserves the memory of a civilization that once controlled one of the most valuable trade networks in the ancient world. Hidden in the mountains of Yemen lies a lost city, a crossroads of caravans and commerce, a fortress guarding the incense routes of Arabia, and one of the most remarkable forgotten cities of the ancient world, the strange circular fortress nobody can explain. Deep within the deserts of Uzbekistan stand the ruins of a structure unlike almost anything else in the ancient world. A massive circular fortress, surrounded by thick defensive walls, built in an isolated landscape far from modern cities, and designed with a shape that continues to puzzle archaeologists today. At first glance, it looks like a military stronghold. But the more researchers studied it, the stranger it became. Its layout is unusual, its purpose remains uncertain, and some of its features seem to suggest it was far more than a simple fortress. This mysterious site is known as Koy-Krilgan Kala, and it remains one of Central Asia's most fascinating archaeological enigmas. The ruins lie in the ancient region of Khwarezm, near the lower reaches of the Amu Darya River. Today, the surrounding landscape is largely desert, but thousands of years ago, this area supported thriving communities connected by irrigation systems, trade routes, and fertile farmland. Civilizations flourished here long before many people in the wider world had even heard of the region. Among those civilizations was a culture capable of constructing remarkable monuments. Koy-Krilgan Kala is one of the most unusual examples. The structure dates to roughly the 4th century BC. From above, its design immediately stands out. A large circular building occupies the centre. Surrounding walls form a nearly perfect ring around it. Towers project outward at regular intervals. The entire complex appears carefully planned rather than gradually expanded over time. Everything about the site suggests deliberate design. One of the most fascinating aspects of the monument is its shape. Ancient fortresses are often rectangular. Cities tend to grow according to practical needs. Koy-Krilgan Kala follows neither pattern. Its circular form raises important questions. Why build a fortress like this? What advantages did the design provide? And was defence even its primary purpose? Archaeologists have debated these questions for decades. Some researchers believe the structure served as a fortress protecting nearby communities. The thick walls and defensive towers certainly support that idea. Others argue it functioned as a ceremonial centre or religious complex. Still others suggest it may have combined several roles at different times throughout its history. The evidence points in multiple directions. No single explanation has solved the mystery. Excavations revealed that the central building contained numerous rooms arranged around an inner core. Researchers discovered pottery, tools, inscriptions, and human remains. These finds indicate that people occupied the site for extended periods, yet the exact activities carried out there remain unclear. The monument seems too elaborate to be merely defensive, too fortified to be solely ceremonial, and too unusual to fit comfortably into familiar categories. Another intriguing possibility involves astronomy. Some scholars have suggested that parts of the structure may have been aligned with celestial events. Ancient civilizations often connected architecture with observations of the sky. The circular design has encouraged speculation that Koy-Krilgan Kala served astronomical or ritual functions alongside its practical uses. While evidence remains limited, the theory continues to attract attention. The site also reveals the sophistication of ancient Khwarezmian society. Constructing such a monument required planning, engineering, labour, and organisation. The builders possessed knowledge of architecture and construction techniques suited to a challenging environment. They were not isolated communities living on the edge of civilization. They were participants in a complex regional culture with its own traditions and achievements. The surrounding region once supported numerous settlements connected through agriculture and trade. Irrigation canals transformed dry landscapes into productive farmland. Caravans moved goods across Central Asia. Ideas travelled between distant cultures. Koy-Krilgan Kala existed within this larger world. Yet despite its importance, much of that world remains poorly understood compared to other ancient civilizations. At some point, the monument was abandoned. The reasons remain uncertain. Political changes may have altered regional power structures. Environmental conditions may have shifted. Trade routes may have changed. Whatever the cause, the site gradually fell silent. Windblown sand accumulated against the walls. Roofs collapsed. The desert slowly reclaimed the structure. For centuries, the strange circular fortress stood forgotten beneath the Central Asian sky. Then archaeologists began uncovering its story. What they found raised as many questions as answers. Even today, Khoi Krilgan Kala continues to challenge researchers. Every discovery reveals new clues, yet the monument stubbornly refuses to surrender all of its secrets. Today, it stands as one of the most mysterious archaeological sites in Uzbekistan. Not because of treasure, not because of famous kings, but because its purpose remains one of the great unanswered questions of ancient Central Asia. Deep in the desert stands a strange circular fortress, a monument built by a forgotten civilization, a structure whose true purpose remains uncertain, and one of the most fascinating mysteries hidden along the ancient frontiers of the Silk Road.